Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome, I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today's love for stories has always been part of him. As a lifelong learner, he holds a Ph.D. in human and organizational systems, a master's in psychology, a master's of divinity, and is a certified life coach. He's also an avid fan of movies. He is the co-producer of a fun Christmas short film, Excuse Me, Santa, available now on YouTube, and he has a new film project, Doxology. Following his gifts and passion, he founded a production and publishing company whose purpose is to explore, inspire, and create community through writing, filmmaking, and storytelling. He is married to Sherri, his soulmate, best friend, and creative muse. Going Barefoot, a lost key mystery, is his debut novel. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Jeff Hutcheson.
Thank you. It's fun to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited.
Jeff, our first question on Authors Over 50 is always, so what took you so long to write your first book?
That's a great question. I think I was just busy working. For 30 years, I still am a Presbyterian minister, but I was pastoring churches and serving regional presbyteries. And but in a way, I've always been writing. I've journaled my whole life. I've written a church school curriculum. I've got a series of children's sermons that are published. But there was also and sermons, of course, every week. Excuse me. But there's also this love of stories that has been with me my whole life, and I've always wanted to write something like this. And it's funny when I spoke to my wife or my friends about writing, their answers are always the same. Well, you've been talking about that your whole life. And as I approached the end of this last call, my end of my last job in San Francisco, I noticed that on my bookshelf and in my Kindle, I had collected 60 plus books about writing, all kinds of books, how to write a screenplay, character development, even a book on how to find time to write. And I didn't do it for work or school or anything like that. I did it because I just love stories and I love how they're put together. And I said, maybe I should listen to that more intently. So it was like as one phase of one chapter was closing in my life, another one was coming on and opening and had been for a long time. And I decided to engage it and really give it a shot. And it started out as really a love letter to my wife. I was taking some of the stories I'd heard her say over the years and created a character named Bailey and turned it into fiction. And it was fun. So it was fun to have her read it. She was the number one audience I was writing for in the beginning. But the character took on a life of her own and became Bailey. And the story did too. So it's a fictionalized thing. But some people will ask me sometimes, well, did all that stuff really happen to Sherri, your wife? And I will just smile and sort of leave them guessing a little bit as to what was real and what wasn't. But that's how it started. And it's almost like this is the right time now. This is the season for doing this, and kind of an encore career, if you will. So that seems natural and an extension of something I've always been doing. So, but this is my first novel, and I'm really excited about it.
Once you knew you had to write the book, how did you proceed? Did you search for an agent, decide to choose a hybrid, a small press, or did you self-publish?
I knew I never searched for an agent. I knew I was going to self-publish. And my main focus and goal was learning how to write a book. That was my first thing I wanted to do. What does it take to write a novel? And having read a lot about writing, there were some authors I liked, and I started with their methodologies. For example, Tom Bird is one of those authors, where I took a large lineless paper and just started writing and let it take me wherever I wanted. And I even had encountered my inner critic along the way. As I know, writers and creative people will know about the inner critics, or sometimes they're a committee in your head. And I was really running into them right up front. And I came up with a way to sort of acknowledge that. And I gave my critic, it sounds sort of schizophrenic in a way, but or like I'm two people, but I gave my critic, I said, look, here you go. I'm going to give you a piece of paper. You can say whatever you need and I'll write it down. And I wrote down every protest that came up and I could think of, but I kept writing. And I suddenly quieted the voices and realized in a strange way, they were looking after me, didn't want me to be embarrassed or fall or, but in terms of really diving deeply into the process, I hired a writing coach, Lyndon. She was the one-stop writing shop. And I met her through my wife, also had introduced us and known her. And she is still my writing coach today. And she also has a publishing company called Incubation Press. And so the beauty of she's wonderful. She helps you with your story content, even does a little bit of editing along the way. But then she also connects you with everybody you need to publish your book, from editors to people like Carrie Barnum at New Shelves Books, the book marketer. She's the person who helped me realize where my book fit in the world of books. It's a cozy mystery, and who my audience might be. I didn't know any of that stuff. But Lyndon was and it still is very helpful in helping me get to the finish line. She helped me to slow down, learn to layer the books, put in the texture. But she also helped me self-publish. I knew I was going to self-publish because I was more interested in just getting the book done and learning what does it mean to write a book. Because I thought if I can finish this first novel, then I'll have an understanding of it and I'll be able to go, I'll write another one, which I'm working on. And so this idea of the Lost Key Mystery has blossomed into what I think is going to be 3 books. And I'm working on the second one now. But what I love about Lyndon's work is she says, here's what it takes to get a book published. One way or another, you got to do these things. And you can use kind of a la carte services she offers, or she knows people who offer, or go about it your own, but you got to do these things. And so the other side of that is promotion, which is a whole nother realm that I'm totally learning and unfamiliar with and not good at.
Well, let's talk about that, because a lot of our writers don't like to market themselves or their books and are always looking for ideas. So do you have any ideas about what has worked for you, what you would not suggest to somebody because it didn't work?
Well, I'm so learning still. I still feel like I'm learning what that means. When Lyndon connected me with Carrie, it was one of the possible services I could offer Carrie Barnum at a New Bookshelf.
New Shelves Books.
Thank you. She said she helped me get it set up, an author page on Facebook, get set up on the Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, all of that, which had an initial impact, and so it was available that way. People could order physical copy or Kindle. And there's other promotions that I'm still learning and not very good at. I went to the local bookstore, and my wife, Sherri's always promoted me if we're out together, and she helps me actually talk about my book. I'm not even good about that. But we talked about it to a bookstore downstairs, and they said, we'll be glad to feature a local author. So they put it on their Facebook page and in their store. But I still feel like I am just scratching the surface on how do you market your book in a real effective way. One thing I haven't developed yet that I've been encouraged to do is regular posting, regular blogging, just getting your thoughts out there about writing or about what you're doing. So I'm still working on that. But I would suggest if you're just starting out, it's worth it to get a market analysis of what you think your book is. That's what Carrie provided me. It was worth the cost, because then I kind of understood where I was. and what I was trying to go for. Um,
Well, you're a life coach yourself, but it's nice to have coaches coach the coach.
yes, it truly is, especially in writing. Yeah.
What is your writing routine? Are you a morning person or a night person? You're so busy with your other careers. How do you find time to write?
Yeah, that was the challenge at first. I've stepped back now from the full-time service to the churches and presbytery, and in order to give creative Jeff room to play, I planned it out, and I planned a time to step away, knowing that I could give my creative self that's been wanting to come out more time just to play. And so, but morning time is my time. I first thing in the morning, I sit down and I look at my story and I write. I actually have a audio I downloaded that has some background sounds and music to sort of get me. It's my writing time. It came from Tom Bird's stuff, actually. But I like the morning time. Sometimes I get back to it in the afternoon, but first thing in the morning is what works for me. And I understand it's just different for everybody. Whatever works for you is what you do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, give us a little synopsis about your book and then read a few paragraphs so that we can hear your tone and voice in the book.
I sure will. Well, it's Bailey's a free spirit whose happy place is driving her Jeep along the Gulf Coast that she loves. It's a summer beach read. She's a real estate agent who has dreams of selling in Mobile, and to her, Mobile is the neighboring city, and to her, it's a big city, and she wants to go there and sell estate homes. But she's drawn to, there's a mysterious developer who showed up in her town, who's not really a developer, but that comes clear later, but he's threatening the existence of her town and her real estate company that she loves. And she takes him on. She recognizes, oh, something's up here, and she tries to stop him from ruining Lost Key. And in order to do that, she has to do something called go barefoot. And going barefoot, hear about going barefoot, walking on the beach. Here it means it's a metaphor for getting in touch with your intuition and your gifts and your feelings and trusting that. And you see Bailey doing more of that as she tries to go to Mobile and then comes back and forth and learns to really trust her gifts. So it's fun. It's a fun summer beach read. So I really like it. I took a few liberties with Lost Key. There is such a place called Perdido Key, but the geography is a little bit fictionalized in the books. I figure author liberty, but it's still fun. Cool. This is when Bailey comes before her current boss in Lost Key, and she's blown a listing. She kind of messed up, and so she's dreading being at the office. And this is kind of an introduction of the office. This is in a chapter 6 called Hard Lessons. And I'll read the first paragraph. The old faded leather crinkled as Bailey leaned back on the couch. Boy, if this thing could talk. She wondered about the clients and agents who'd sat in this very spot. Today, it felt like an actual hot seat. Though the furniture couldn't talk, it did smell. Or was it something else? No one knew for sure. Lost Key Realty used to be the Crossbones Bar. The sofa had endured as one of the items left over from the old tavern. Despite the deep cleaning, the fresh paint, and even a couple of new walls, a strange bar smell lingered throughout the office. No one had yet pinpointed precisely where the smell originated. One day you would swear the couch stank. Another day, the smell seemed to be inside the cinder block walls. The invisible odor appeared to move around the office like a drunken ghost that didn't realize the bar had closed.
Very nice.
Thank you. I wanted to read that paragraph because that last line, the invisible odor appeared to move around the office like a drunken ghost that didn't realize the bar had closed. That's one of my favorite lines in the whole book. And it's one of those moments where you're writing and then it just falls out of the sky, or it just comes to you, this line, and you think, oh, I love that line.
Yes.
but I couldn't have pre-planned it at all. You know what I mean.
Yes. And usually our editors will say, you can kill those darlings, take out those sentences that you love so much after we've thought, oh, these are the best ever.
I just love that sentence, and I wanted to when I knew you wanted us to read a section, I thought I'm going to read that section.
Well, you're in the perfect place to sell beach reads in Pensacola and down in the panhandle of Florida. That book should do very well in those bookstores around there, and maybe you'll come up with some real unique places to sell it as well. A lot of our writers are thinking out of the box and not just going to bookstores, but little grocery stores or gourmet food shops or different places like that.
There's a clothing store downtown, Pensacola, that found out I wrote a book and offered to, hey, come put your book up in here, which I thought was really neat.
Nice. Yeah.
And I discovered in one of the many festivals Pensacola has, there was a stand with a bunch of authors there, a writers club featuring their books. And I thought I'm going to connect with them as well. But it's fun. But I just thrilled if someone actually reads the book, and then when they enjoy it, that just, to me, is the biggest payoff. And I've had a few of those comments from various people, so I was really excited.
It really is exciting to hear from the readers, and also to build that writer community that you're talking about, because other writers are such generous souls to share what they've been through. And that's kind of the reason for this podcast, is to celebrate those of us who wrote our first book after the age of 50 and found a true community, who will give advice and walk us along the way and support us and buy our books. And so it's been really fun.
It's fun. It was very encouraging to be asked to be on your podcast. And, sometimes you need a bit of keep going encouragement at the right time. And your invitation came on one of those days. Like, oh, wow.
That's what we're all about. Tell us about your filmmaking. Will you make Going Barefoot into a movie?
We would love to. I partnered with my nephew, Hunter Hutcheson, and he wants to be a filmmaker and is a filmmaker. And he has a company called Classic Distractions, and he posts his short films and films on there. And we wanted to make a film together, and he wanted this book for Christmas called Producer to Producer: How to Produce a Movie. And I bought one for myself, and we started reading it, and just like, let's learn how to produce a movie. And he had written something back in college that he brought forward called Excuse Me, Santa, a little Christmas play. And we started working on the story. We started having video Zoom calls, production meetings, if you will. And we thought, let's do this. And so we put together a short film, and that was our first one. And part of me did this because I wanted to test the waters and see if I would really love doing that. And I did. I just loved it. And when we got closer we got the story where we wanted it, and in a shootable format, and we got closer to it, he said, let's put out a casting call, and I'd never done that before. And apparently, and you can do it online now and all that. And he lives up in Georgia, just south of Atlanta, which is a big film area right now. And he put out a casting call, and we had 300 people want to be in our short film. I was just blown away. I said, you're kidding me. So we started sifting through the actors. We only needed 5. so we started sorting through the actors, and we found our cast, and they all agreed. And we just followed this book we were reading, like a manual, and it worked beautifully. And even the cast were going, well, you're one of the more organized films we've been on lately. And we had some wonderful help from a professional cinematographer and his cameraman, and some lighting. And we shot it at my mom's house and my brother's office. We had 2 locations, and it was about a girl coming to terms with the fact that there was no Santa. She was like, she discovers one Christmas, oh my gosh, there's not Santa, but it's her dad. And it's a sweet, cute film, and it worked beautifully. We were just so thrilled with the way it turned out. And you can watch that on YouTube. So we want to make more. That film, 17 minutes, took 3 full days of shooting and a couple of years of planning. But so hoping to shoot another one in the fall called Doxology, which is based on a sermon I read once, but I always thought would make a short film. And we have talked about Going Barefoot. We thought this would be a fun movie to shoot. It'd be a full-length movie, but we haven't begun to break it down yet. But we really want to. So we plan to make more.
Very exciting. Most of us who write books want to see those books on the big screen.
I
And
love it. I would love it.
I have a media agent in LA who's shopping my book around to different studios. Of course, it's hurry up and wait, in this business. So I'm glad that you took control and you're doing your own.
Doing my own. I mean, this would to have the resources of a large production company would be fun because I sort of think movie scenes and movie likes. I always thought that Going Barefoot and Bailey would make a great film,
Oh,
almost
yeah.
a Hallmark type of
Yes.
film. But yeah, so that's fun. I hope to shoot it one day. We got a few other ideas too that we're kicking around that might be really fun. But it's hard to get. The time is the big thing. Getting to it. Just getting it on paper and then getting it to it.
Well, speaking of time, do you make time to read yourself for pleasure?
I do as much as I can, and I like a variety of books. I'm currently reading Dune, the science fiction book that's the famous book. I've never read it. My nephew said one of his favorite books, so I started reading it, and it is quite good. I also like the thriller kind of novels, like the Lee Child, Jack Reacher novels, and because my wife, I read an Eloisa James novel because I just think she describes her scenes are so vivid, and the way she describes things is beautiful. But I heard or I read Stephen King in his book on writing said, read a lot and write a lot. So I think that's two good pieces of advice.
Yes.
Because when I read, it gets my writing brain working. And I thought, I even saved sentences that I thought are well said or succinctly said or poetic. I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful way to say that.
It's amazing too when we read other people's work, what it triggers. It'll trigger a childhood memory or something that just comes to our head that I don't know where it comes from, but reading people's work, or I listen to audiobooks now, especially when I travel or ride my bike, and just hearing somebody's voice in my head will trigger some ideas that I have to get down on paper when I get home, and it won't even pertain to the book that I'm listening to.
But it might, yes, exactly. I totally understand that because it might fit somewhere else. Sometimes if I had an idea or a scene, I just have this little folder called story ideas because they might work somewhere else. Another person, you mentioned audiobook. The last audiobook I listened to, I really enjoyed was by Carl Hutcheson, the author who wrote Hoot. But it was one of his first novels. And of course, he writes about Florida and sets it in Florida. And he captures that, the southern uniqueness of Florida. And that's one of the things I liked, or I was going for with the Bailey book or Going Barefoot is I wanted some of the Southern flavor that I know in there. And that's the fun part. That's the funnest part of writing, when you get the structure down and then you start adding the paint on the walls,
Yes.
how the phrases and the things, those are fun. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, our writers over 50 are quite a unique set. Would you have any advice for writers 50 and above?
Oh, now's the best time. Now is your best time. Go for it. Because I was thinking of that question. You've lived a lot of life. You have something to say. And that's what writing is about. It's your voice, your words, your story, and your perception. And I would say go for it and enjoy it. Enjoy the process, and have fun with it. And let yourself run with it, because it's been good. And figure out marketing later. I think just get in the habit of writing and let yourself write. Have a good time.
I think that's a great place for us to end our chat together. And we appreciate your being with us so much, Jeff. You've got such a great spirit, and I think you would be wonderful to work with on a film or as a coach. So I appreciate you so much being with our authors over 50.
Well, I thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and an inspiration to be here. Thank you for what you're doing. It's inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's D-A-I-L-Y, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.